Yeah, I think God really comes into play in finding your identity in Christ rather than trying to find your value in a relationship, really trying to find your value in your relationship with God. And then when you get in a relationship, it's a lot more healthy that way because you're not trying to be validated by them for every little thing, but you find your validation in God.
Get counsel from people who honor commitment, believe in growth, and have walked through hard seasons without giving up.
I think it's so important to focus on yourself when it comes to your relationship with Him and identify with Christ because you bring what you bring to the table, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Your whole
being
self.
in the right
Yeah.
perspective and bringing worth to the relationship is so important.
Welcome back to the LCI podcast. We are so excited to be back in the groove for 2026. And I am joined today by my wonderful co-hosts, Justin Hutchinson and Joseph Gleaves. And we are excited today it's a relevant conversation. It is February, lots
Big
of
month.
hearts flying around.
Yep.
And the big question that I proposed to my co-hosts was, how do I know if my relationship is healthy? That's a big question.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a heavy question, I think, an assumption that a lot of times we make, possibly.
Yeah.
And so just to clarify, so here today, as we're talking, we're really talking more to those that are listening in that are married, engaged, or you're seriously dating someone.
Yeah.
And so maybe not every relationship we're talking about is spouse, so maybe we could use the word partner today as we're talking just to kind of relate to all three of those categories. And not only that, but because the question is so broad, we want to answer this question really breaking it down to a more direct, and you mentioned this, a more direct, detailed conversation.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, I think our listeners need to know a little bit about our background and our relationship just so that they know where we're coming from.
For sure.
So I'll go ahead and start. I have been married to my husband for almost 25 years. We were married, I was so little. I was 20 years old when we got married, so I just told everybody how old I was. Yay, that was great. I was 20 years old. He was almost 22, so we were very young when we got married. And then we also dated in high school. I use that term loosely because it means something different now, I think, than it did back then. We liked each other in high school, and then we were also boyfriend and girlfriend in college. So we've been together a really long time. That's kind of going to be where I'm coming from. So,
Sure.
Yeah. Joseph, what about you?
Well, by the time you and your husband were in college, you were probably together longer than me and my wife have been together the whole time. So, I would say, known each other for 4 years, roughly, and then we've been married for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
So, I heard everybody say before we got married, the first and second year, those are the hardest years, And there are a lot of things that you're learning about each other, and I think that's why a lot of people say it's the hardest years. But it's been great, and I think if you love your spouse, which hopefully you do, or your partner, then you're going to want to learn everything that you can about them, and that helps you just communicate better and then have that healthy relationship, which we're going to be talking about today. So,
yeah, for sure.
Justin, what about you?
A little longer than that.
Yeah.
So Michaela and I have been married for 12, going on 13 years. I feel like we've have 50 years in 12 years, if that makes sense. It's feel like a journey for sure.
Yeah.
But we've known each other we didn't know each other very long before we got married. We got a very short dating and very short engagement. When you know. And we were excited to go for it, and it's been a blessing ever since. So.
That's awesome. So it's really three very different perspectives and experiences.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So I feel like the voices that we are coming from, I hope a lot more people can relate while they're listening in today.
I think so.
With that being said, all right, so we kind of have a list here. There's some specific areas, and it was my opinion. I want you guys to chime in. You must address with yourself first in order to have a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? It's not just about you and this other person.
Right.
You have to know who you are. I mean, and we are a church. We are all on the pastoral team here, and so for me, I even go a step further and say you really need to know who you are in Christ.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, you have to be healthy in you in order for there to be a foundation. You know, let's speak a little bit to that. You know, identity must come before, and I loved this quote, intimacy. And so, like, what is that? How does that mean or make you feel? You know, when you think about your relationship and where you're sitting at, you know, knowing yourself. I kind of feel, and I'll just say real quickly, I don't know that I knew myself at all at 20.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I got married. But I do understand the concept so much more now.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it's because I'm a little older, wiser, I don't know. But I can't say that I didn't know who I was at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I would say, just from my perspective, we didn't get married until I was 25. And just growing up, I kind of, you know, thought I would get married like earlier on than that. Glad it didn't happen, because there was a lot of growth that took place in me between like 20 and 25. I moved out of my parents' house at 19, kind of lived on my own, you know, just working, things like that. And had never like gotten out of church or anything, but I was, you know, consistently going and trying to be involved in ministry, stuff like that, all throughout that time. But really, I think between like 23 and 25, I just really was wanting to focus on God and not any type of relationship. Just really pursue God and see, you know, what came of that, what doors that, you know, he opened. And it's really cool looking back, because my wife did the same thing. You know, she was in college at the time. She said she was not looking for any type of relationship. And then it just so happened that one of my mutual friends, a girl that I knew in Tennessee, became really good friends with her. And then it just kind of happened organically. So it was really cool. And so I know that, you know, they say guys mature a lot slower than girls do.
Sorry,
so
guys.
I really
truth to that.
did feel like I was mature at that age, you know.
Okay.
And I could look back and, you know, at 20 I thought I was mature for 20, right?
Yeah.
But at 25 I really feel like I was, you know, where I needed to be in a relationship like that. And I think it just came from that time that I focused on my relationship with God and just focused on him, focused on, hey, how can I serve in the church? How can I help other people? How can I just be the best version of myself? I was really working on myself to be the best version of me, and not necessarily for another person, but just for me. And it was great, because then when I found, you know, my future spouse, it was like everything was just clicking. It was, you know, my life was, I felt where it needed to be at that time. So yeah, I think God really comes into play in finding your identity in Christ, rather than trying to find your value in a relationship, really trying to find your value in your relationship with God. And then when you get in a relationship, it's a lot more healthy that way, because you're not trying to be validated by them for every little thing, you know, but you find your validation in God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Such
true.
a good point.
Yeah, I think there's something to identity, because identity is worth. And so how much worth you give yourself is how you treat yourself. And
Yeah,
so
100%.
if you don't
That's
value
true.
something, you're not going to treat it the way it should be treated. And I think when you look at the perspective that you're God's creation and that you are created in his image and that you're there to serve him, and you identify with that and you identify in your relationship with Christ, I think you're going into a relationship healthier, because you're seeing yourself of worth. And then when you go into it, you feel like you have something to give. You know,
good,
I feel like if you don't see yourself in God through God's perspective, a lot of times you're going to treat yourself and in through the funnel treat other people in a way that they shouldn't be treated. And so I think there's a lot of value in seeing how you identify yourself.
Yeah.
You know, identifying with Christ, identifying your relationship with him brings love, compassion, all the fruits that come from it in a relationship with God. And I think that's important going into a relationship, because you're right. The first couple of years is a learning experience, right? And I'm sure all of us have experienced it. You know, I can remember the first time we lived together after marriage, and The first few weeks was like a lot of learning. But luckily, both of us had a strong relationship with Christ. We both prayed. We both read our Bibles. And we all had a lot of peace, love, joy, all those things that come from, your relationship with him. So I think it's so important to focus on yourself when it comes to your relationship with him and identify with Christ, because you bring what you bring to the table, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Your whole
being
self.
in the right perspective and bringing worth to the relationship is so important.
I love that too, because, and kind of tying in. So the first thing I think of is when you get to that point in when you're growing up and your parents buy you everything, and then you get to the point where you start buying yourself stuff.
Yeah.
And at least for me, I took different care of it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
when I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You
My
know,
little guy, he destroys cars. But if I bought an expensive Lego set or something, no one's touching it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's my money.
So I love that point. And I would also like to say too, I mean, thinking about that first couple of years, like you had mentioned back a few minutes ago, even though, and Justin made this point, even though it wasn't necessarily that we knew everything about ourselves and our identity, we were most definitely committed to our relationship with Christ and putting Christ in the middle. And so that covers so many flaws.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because, and this is what's going to lead us into this next point here, is when you understand the concept of being whole with someone, you've had a relationship with Christ, you understand how that works, how to be whole with Christ. So then you add a person in the mix. You don't want to be lost in them. You don't want all your value to be, like you said, be validated in everything they say and they do. I love words of affirmation. My husband learned really early on that I need to be told when he likes something or when he doesn't like something. Even more importantly, when I feel like I need a compliment. And he needed to know when I needed a compliment, and he didn't read my mind. And so learning how to express to him my need for words of affirmation. And for a long time, I thought that's all I needed, until I realized, oh no, I need quality time. Like, that's a really big thing for me, is quality time. And he needs acts of service. And so doing something small, like making him his favorite dessert, all of that stuff comes with, let's talk about the real nitty gritty. I'm not so lost in him that I don't know who I am. I am someone whole with him.
Right.
So let's speak to that for a minute, if you don't mind. Jesus is my savior, not my husband.
Yeah, 100%.
I do love him, but he's not. Jesus is.
Yeah. And I would just say that something that I think people do, and I think I found myself doing when I was younger, is just trying to find everything in a person, right? And I've heard it said before, and I agree with it, that there's a void in us that only God can fill. And if we're trying to fill it with, a person or a person's love, it's never going to be enough. And nothing that person can do will ever be enough to truly satisfy our soul. There's things that my wife will do that, I'm satisfied with, things that I do for her that she's happy with. But it's you can't find everything that you truly need in one person. They're going to fail you. They're not going to be enough. That's just the way that it is. And I think God kind of designed it that way for us to know that he is perfect. He's the one that fills all the voids. He's the one that brings us, like Justin said, the joy and the peace and all those things. We can't find that in a person. But I think that when we find that in God, he's willing to send the right person so we can be whole with that person, like you said. Right. And I just think that that's the foundation of any relationship. And we kind of already touched on that, but I think that's really the foundation, is just your relationship with God. And then when you add that person in, you're not trying to just suck them dry of everything that they can give. Right?
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what movies and novels, especially, so many people are into romantic novels right now, and things that really we don't need to be reading, to be quite honest. Put the book down. You're reading a book that one person has created all the characters, There's not multiple people. It's like you're idolizing maybe this man in this book or this woman in this book. I think maybe I'm probably speaking to more females just based on statistics. Reading these books about how men are romantic and treat their love, and all that type of thing, and it gives you this inadequate perception of what you think a man should be in your life. Like that's not fair to my future husband. If somebody's listening in and they're all about their romance novels, that's great. Be careful though, because you can literally make a list. We're not even going by the Bible anymore. We're going off of feelings and emotions in these books that we're reading, these romantic novelties of what this woman who wrote the books says a perfect man is.
Yeah.
Rather than God himself.
Yeah, I think it's so important to see God as your savior, especially in a relationship when the other person does as well. When both of you have a prayerful lifestyle, when it comes to important decisions in life and those big choices that will impact you as a couple. There were some big decisions that my wife and I had made, and we were indecisive about it. Neither one of us really knew what to do or how to go forth about it. And both of us in prayer just felt the urge in the right direction, the same direction. Well, it wasn't us talking to each other and making that decision. It was us going to God. And God's a God of unity. And he, when they were all in one place in one accord, suddenly there came a sound from heaven. Unity is where God flourishes, not discourse and angst and issues between one another. We're created by God, and we are to live a life with him. But when God provides that spouse, he doesn't want disunity. He wants us on the same page. And what better way than to follow his direction when both of you are on the same page in your prayer life with him? And so I think it's so important to understand that it really is God at the forefront of your life and your marriage. When Michaela and I first got married, we decided that when we go into this marriage, I'm not the final say in big decisions. My wife's not the final say. God's the final say. If we're both praying about it and God is tugging at our hearts and telling us or giving us direction, and we just feel the urge from God to go a certain way, and we're both in agreement that God is telling us or guiding us in that direction, God's the final say.
Yeah, I like that.
And just seeing and understanding that, yes, you have a lot of power to tour your life wherever you want it to go, but no better way than the journey and the path that God's placed before you.
Yes.
And so, and that comes through prayer, that comes through being unified in your relationship with Christ. And I think just knowing that, this relationship isn't just you two, that there is a God that you put at the head of the house and that you follow and you allow to direct you. And it'll bring unity between you and your wife.
Right. I think it also protects against resentment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're saying that, I'm thinking, you're so right. Like, I don't resent decisions that may have come out differently than I initially wanted, for my family or, us moving to Arizona 3 years ago, whatever that, from California. And all of that is because when you go to God and you get direction from him, then it's not like I'm resenting my husband for bringing me out here or he's resenting me for bringing him out here. No.
Well, and what better way than to be led by God as a couple when God reveals himself in the path that he's displayed, and all of a sudden your eyes are open to what God is trying to get you to. Just really quickly, my wife and I were really, really considering moving to Oklahoma. We had just finished fostering. All 3 of our kids were taken back to their parents. It was kind of devastating in those situations, and it was hurtful, and we were broken, and we didn't know what to do, and we had a lot of family in Oklahoma, and we felt the urge to just maybe go out there. We could have sold the equity in Arizona, because you all know we have so much equity out here, and pretty much buy a house outright in Oklahoma. And just financially, it made a lot of sense. But we couldn't find a church, and we didn't really have any leadership or any pastoral opportunities or any just working in the church. We didn't have any opportunities there, and we were on the fence, and we just prayed and asked that God would just direct us. And through prayer and through a lot of prayer, we found ourselves together at a lake on the final day, and we looked at each other and said, "This is not where God wants us to be." Wow. 2 weeks later, after coming back, our little guy came back to us. It was a very weird situation. never saw it coming, shouldn't even had him, but God's hand was on it. And our little guy's here today with us, 4 years old, and probably till he's 18, till he's, till we die probably.
Yeah.
And that was all because we followed after God, not our own wants and desires and how we felt like would benefit us most.
Yeah.
And so those little moments when you allow God to be the head and just follow after him personally and as a couple, God will direct you in marvelous ways and open up doors of opportunity that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, and that's like a testament to, hey, we listened to God, and here's what happened.
What great confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation,
Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't think we ever had in our relationship, we followed God's urge or whatever. We never been on the same page so much than when we decided to come back. And it was a God thing. We had followed after him, and we felt, I didn't audibly hear his voice, but both of us through prayer just felt the urge 100% to move back. And not even a week or two later, God's hand was revealed. And so I think it's just, it's a testament to making God the forefront of your life and the head of your life and stepping down sometimes, even when it's not necessarily the most wanted thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, like just kind of bring it back around. So, because we're still kind of talking about us as individuals and making sure we're taking care of ourselves and our relationship with Christ. And you said something, and #preach is kind of how I thought when you were talking. I know I'm old. You hashtag still. No. Finding someone, right? So you thought you'd be married earlier.
Yeah.
But you weren't. In my opinion, listening to you, I'm thinking rather than going out and looking for someone, finding someone, you were preparing for that someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And letting that someone come to you from God. And so that kind of speaks right there to maybe someone that's not in a relationship right now.
Yeah.
And wanting one.
Absolutely. Like anyone that's single, because, I was single for, a while before my wife came along. And I think it's super important to just prepare yourself because, you can pray for all these things in a spouse that you want. And it's like, well, what are you going to be for that spouse? Because it can really become, especially in today's culture, all about what I want, what I need.
Yes.
And I think, I think growing up, I was like taught, make this list of everything that you want in a future spouse, youth groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We would talk about that stuff. And so writing it all down, and it's like, this is everything that I want. It's like all these perfect qualities, that's a lot of times not realistic. And it's like, well, what are you going to be? What are you going to, Justin said you bring the good and the bad to the table. And well, it's like, well, what is the bad that I can try to work on, before I get in a relationship? And frankly, when you get in a relationship, it brings out some stuff that you really need to
highlights
work on.
A lot
Because I thought, I grew up with sisters.
Okay.
And so I'm like, well, I know
you
girls,
know women.
I know them.
He's good,
And
right?
then, yeah, I'm gonna be a trophy husband. This is gonna be a breeze. And I get into a marriage, and I'm like, okay, like my wife is not my sister's, right?
Right.
I got to be more for her, and they're a totally different person, right? I had 3 sisters, and they were all different from each other, and my wife's different from them. So it's like, you can't look at a woman and think that it's the same person. Same with a man, right? We're all unique. We all have our own qualities, our differences, and kind of going back to what you said about books and kind of like the romance of it. Like growing up with sisters, there were shows, there were movies, rom-coms and stuff, where it would always end with a wedding, and it was all great, and everybody's happy. Yeah. And when you get into a marriage, there's the day-to-day. There's the mundane, there's the routine of it, right?
Yeah.
And they never talk about that in a novel. They never talk about that in movies. Like, it's always the highlight, the best part of it, the beginning of it. And that is an incredible part of, a relationship. Being engaged or a marriage, it's a great part to celebrate. But then, there is work that goes into it, and it's not always, this exciting, movie or production. Right. And I think just like if you're just like watching that, reading those things, you kind of set this unrealistic expectation of this is how every single day is going to be like.
Yeah.
And then when it's not, like you feel discouraged or let down. You feel, I was listening to a podcast that says frustration is, the expectations not being met, basically, or uncommunicated expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if we set the standard or the bar so high that it's impossible for anyone to reach,
Right.
that we're gonna be disappointed and let down and frustrated.
And marriage is where it begins.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, even though
Yeah.
you may have dated a long time or not any at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know how everybody works, but you know, it's new.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so you have to, okay, we're beginning again
Mm-hmm.
and learning. And it takes, oh man, I read the statistic and I already forgot it. I believe studies show it takes almost 9 years before your brain clicks into, okay, this person is whole with me. It may be like 7 to 9. There's like that 7.
Yeah.
That's why they say the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of times marriages don't last that long or that type of thing. I just find that really interesting, just knowing the things that I went through and my husband went through during that time frame. It was really difficult, and we
Yeah.
did have to kind of reground ourselves and re-understand what we each needed. But you know, now we can kind of start talking about if you can have that in yourself, you know, knowing who you are just in the season that you're in. Don't worry about knowing who you are in the future. That will come by God's grace and his mercy,
Yeah.
you know. But like now, today, how can I be the best that I can be today for what God you want me and who you want me to be with?
Absolutely.
You know, and yes, I might read, you know, a really nice romance novel or whatever, that type of thing, and I'm not against those, you know, to a certain degree, but I think we need to keep our eyes on our biblical examples.
Yes.
And I want to share this quote really quick. I found it. A friend of ours, that she's a friend of all of us that goes to our church, she posted this. And the quote is by Jen Grant, and it says, "Protect your marriage from voices that lead you away from unity."
I like that.
Any voices.
Yeah.
And you already hit that nail on the head, right? And she says, get counsel from people who honor commitment, believe in growth, and have walked through hard seasons without giving up.
Right.
Yeah.
I know
that's
you
huge.
haven't been married like a super long time, but you guys have walked through some things
Yeah.
where there are other couples looking to you and maybe even listening, you know, knowing you, or if they don't know you, I can say right now, I know that you could be such a great voice in some people's lives that have been married even longer than you, because you have stuck with each other through some very difficult times.
Thank you
Same
for
can
that.
be said
Yeah.
for us, but I want to encourage you,
Yeah.
being the younger married
Yeah.
of the three of us, that, you know, you're already building these amazing bricks, if you will, in the wall in which you build.
Yeah.
And this is why.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
thank
Justin?
you.
I mean,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
he's listening to people that aren't speaking disunity into his marriage.
Oh yeah.
You know, I believe that. I believe that's why you and I
Right.
are where we are today. And that's a huge part of now becoming whole with someone.
Yeah. And I think it's huge too to find those people that you know, have respect for, that have made it work through the years,
Yeah.
I think.
Like, let them be that
Yeah,
voice.
let them be voices in your life. And when you're going through, you know, certain things in marriage, and I think you have to be really wise with what information you share, you know,
Sure.
especially, I
Absolutely.
think, especially with your family members, you know, this is coming from a new married, like, you know, we went through premarital counseling and everything. And that's something that we learned because, you know, before marriage, like my mom, I would talk to her about everything, go to her about everything. But before getting married, you know, I came to the understanding, like, there's only so many things that you can, like, share with your family, you know. And it's, you don't want to, because a lot of times, right, when you go through a struggle, that's when you want to pour out everything. It's not when everything is going good. That's when you don't vent when everything is going good, right?
No, you don't.
You vent when everything is going bad, and then all the, you know, you don't want to put that person that you're with forever in a bad light to your family, you know. So I think that's super important. But then also, yeah, finding those voices that are kind of unbiased, not really on your side,
Yeah,
not on your
no, that's
spouse's
good.
side.
Love
that
you both.
just, yeah, they love you both. They want to see you both grow. They want to see you grow as a couple and stay together, obviously, and that you can, you know, let them be a voice. So I think finding that is really important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think understanding So as we're talking about other things, I want to kind of move into like questions that you can really have conversations with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I used to say a lot, we need to talk more. We need to talk more. I think our relationship would be better if we talk more. And I'm like, no, we don't need to talk more. We need to talk better. We need to talk better. Communication. Oh, yeah. I know. Everybody's going, oh, they brought it up.
That's key.
Isn't it number one?
Important.
Yeah.
It's
Outside
important.
of knowing who you are in Christ, communicating. So let's dig into some details there. Communicating isn't the same for everyone.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
We have different, the three of us, just
Way
in
different,
a friendship, relationship, podcast, sharing. We have different communication styles, and we've even talked about that with how we're going to say things and share things. And it works out great because hopefully people that are listening in can receive something from one of us.
Right.
So how important is it then to understand the communication style of your partner?
Yeah.
And your own. Okay, so we're kind of going back to us.
Yeah.
My own. How do I communicate? I get emotional. Okay, so I need to find a way to explain myself without getting shaking and my lip twitching.
It's
Because
just passion. That's all it is.
Yeah. Passionate.
yeah. So
You're like that because you care. No, I'm just kidding.
so how do you not talk more? You just talk better.
I don't know. But no,
I
I'm
love
just
that
kidding. But
honesty.
I'll be honest with you. Like, communication is so key, and
Yeah.
in a relationship, it's probably, there are some, obviously your relationship with God are very important and all that, but it's probably one of the most important things is how you communicate with your spouse, because honestly, a lot of things can be fixed by good communication. I
100%,
personally, I'm the type that when something is just disturbing me, if something is giving me a problem, I'm frustrated with something, or I need to say something that needs to be more controversial, I'm a non-talker. Like, I just leave me alone for a while, let me cool down, let me gather all this stuff in a heated argument. Like, I'd be fine going in the garage for a bit and just figuring things out before I come back. My wife's not. My wife is like, let's talk about it now and get down to the nitty gritty. And then it creates frustration. And then I get frustrated because I don't want to talk about it right now. She gets frustrated because I don't want to talk about it right now. So it's like, you have to learn that everyone is different. You didn't marry yourself.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I'm glad I didn't marry myself
Thank God.
because I would get annoyed by myself. But I think a lot of times God places someone in your life that makes you better, and ultimately you have to learn that you might be right and they wrong, but the way you go about it is so crucial, because you don't want to come in condescending. You don't want to come in with authority and slam the hammer and my word is law kind of thing. But I think it's very important to learn how to have those conversations and not shy away from them. I think I'm one of those people. I would love to shove. I hate controversy. Like, I despise controversy, and almost to the point where I would just shove it all under the rug. Well, that's not healthy, and nothing gets changed, and ultimately your life gets worse. And so I think not shying away from the conversations is key, but to do that, you have to learn how to communicate a very productive way. And I think it's maybe giving in on how you would want to do it sometimes, and kind of leaning into them a little bit. But then also they have to realize it's a two-way street, and they have to lean in a little bit on how you would present things, and just coming to an agreement. Maybe that's sitting down and having that conversation about how you have conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Go on a date.
True.
and just sit down and say, hey, let's discuss how we want to handle some things. And not that anything's wrong right now, but when things present themselves, we'll be working on it till then, and then to be able to handle it. Prepare yourself.
I love that. Prepare for the storm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
I like that.
You're preaching on that.
Yeah.
It's funny that I laughed because when you said that, like, me and my wife are the exact opposite. Like, I want to talk about it now.
Oh,
like,
really?
Like, let's talk about it now so we can get past it. And, she has to, like, wait, give it some time. So that's what you learn about each other when you're married for a little bit. And so now I'm just like, all right, like, I'll just chill out.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be solved right now, we can wait and talk about it when, when she's ready, right? And so she'll just come to me and we'll have that discussion, whatever it is. And I think it's huge, just to have the conversations when there isn't a problem, which is something that I struggle with, right? Because I'm like, if there's something necessarily that I didn't like that maybe she did or whatever, I don't want to bring it up randomly because I don't want to ruin like a good day or a good night, and this become, not that it has to become a discussion, but that's like a fear of mine. But that's me, right? It has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
That's just like a me thing that I need to work on, I think. But yeah, I think that's super beneficial to do that. And I don't think a lot of people think about it. Like, hey, let's talk about how we talk about things,
No, absolutely.
And just being effective at the way that you communicate. And I think it's huge, very huge. And it's helped that my wife has that stance of like, let's give it time and talk about it. Because during that time, say you're in the garage or whatever, that's kind of what I like to do, just do my own thing. And then, we'll come back together and talk about it, right? I think it's huge because you try to see it from their perspective. And it's not just like, I have to be heard right now, and you have to know how I feel. You have to know how this is affecting me. Instead it's like, well, why are they looking at it this way? And then you try to put yourself, you should try to put yourself in their shoes, see it from their perspective. How did what I say hurt them? Like, how could it hurt them? How could they have perceived that? That type of thing. And so just giving it that time, coming back together and talking about it. And then Miranda, you did a teaching, I think it was on a Wednesday night a while ago. It's been like over a month, where you talked about, responding rather than reacting. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy, to react sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think with your spouse, it could be easy to react sometimes. And I think that's another reason I'm not saying that every couple has to give it time before they discuss something, right? But I think it is healthy to have that time, because then you're not reacting. You're
it's
responding.
Not that emotional.
Yeah, so emotions could be super high, and then you just react and say things you wish you wouldn't have said.
Right.
That's what I
you
was going
can't
to
take
say.
back.
And you talk about how not to talk less, but to talk better. I mean, a lot of it comes to, how reactive you are. If you're in defense mode, a lot of times you're there to protect yourself. And so maybe that's reactive. Yeah. And you come with some stirring words. I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect. There have been times where I said things that I had to apologize. And likewise, my wife, And so it's one of those things that I think it all ties back into your relationship with God, because it centers you. Yeah. If you've been spending time in the Word, it's hard to lash out, because God gives wisdom and knowledge and peace. And so I think it's important to check yourself sometimes, going into a conversation. Maybe you're walking through that door and there's going to be a conversation about to be had. Maybe say a little prayer, say, Lord, give me wisdom and let me not react in a negative way, but let this be constructive and let us work together to make a solution that works good for both of us. And I think just having that mindset is so important. And it goes back to what we all were saying, that working on yourself before you get into a relationship, because those are things you can work on, how you react to conversations or issues, with someone that isn't a spouse, but someone that you have an argument with or something like that, how you become reactive. Working on those little things is so important, because when you go into marriage, you're going to have those things. Like, it just happens, you have two separate type of people living together and now have to learn to be one. And it's a journey, and, you're always learning. We're 12 years in, and I feel like her and I can talk without even talking. You know what I mean? We know each other and well enough to where I just know what she needs and she knows what I need.
I don't know what you mean, but I might find out.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like, it'll surprise you. There'll be times where, I didn't know your stance was on that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah. Now I'm understanding things that I didn't know before. It just happens, Maybe when you've been married 60 years, maybe my grandma and grandpa pretty much just looked at each other and had full conversations, right? But
that's because they didn't have smartphones.
Right. That's probably why, honestly. Just text me your issue and I'll text you back.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's so important, to go in it with a calm mind. And just not to be, you're not there to attack her or him.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And whether that means coming in with love and peace, and I come in peace and wave the
Right.
white flag
Right,
and come
yeah.
in there with the right
Yeah.
mindset is so important.
And trying to remember that he or she is not the enemy.
No.
Like, we're
Yeah.
on the same team. So if something has been done to us and I'm frustrated because of the way he handled it and I wanted it to be a different way, or I feel like my honor has been, that somebody disrespected me and you were supposed to say, all of that is like, no. We're on the same team. Just recently. And I'm going to, it's important. It needs to be said. I've been married a long time. It is easy with our smartphones to be together and not be together.
Be together. Oh, 100%.
And so to communicate is not to go out to dinner and be on our phone the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's not even a date.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Oh, I know. That's really strong words. I know.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. So just recently, my husband and I, we had the opportunity to go to Because of the Times. We decided we were going to fly into a city that was not where the conference was held. So we drove about 3.5 hours or so to the city. For that 3.5 hours, I could have easily been on my iPad or my phone playing games. We did listen to a podcast, things like that. But on the way back from the conference, we talked. We talked about the conference. We talked about our relationship. We talked about emotional things. We talked about physical things. We talked about like so much stuff. We got close to the airport, and I think we'd already checked in. We were through security, and my husband looks at me, and he is probably the more sensitive of the two of us. I don't know what happened to me, but I have lost sensitivity before I was born. I have to work on being compassionate, and God has absolutely given me a measure of that, and I'm thankful for that. Side note. Anyway, he looks at me and he says, I really enjoyed our conversation. And immediately I felt God completely impress on me. And maybe because I was at a conference, I was listening to him a little bit more carefully, the Lord
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everything. But
Yeah.
I really felt like the Lord impressed on me and said, you left your phone in your purse. And it gave him a chance to communicate with you, and you communicated back. It meant so much to me that he would say that,
Yeah.
let alone, the fact that I felt the same exact way, but I wasn't going to be emotional and say it,
Yeah.
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 After
That's-
25 years, I still have to work on
Yeah.
saying what I mean. And I think that's so important. Just something small. I like sitting on the couch with him and we're both on our computers and we're doing work. That's fine. Or I'm, doing my puzzle or whatever. And he's going to watch his YouTube, on hunting and how to best catch an elk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still have our things that we do that aren't together, but we're together. I'm not against any of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is communication, you got to put your phone down.
100%.
You got to put
Yep.
your phone down. And so, that's going to then take you to conversations where you realize, and we've already touched on this, but I'm just going to touch on it again. You have different emotional
Yeah.
needs. You have different spiritual needs. You have different physical needs. You have different social needs.
Yep.
Your needs are different, not just because you're man and woman,
Yeah.
but because you're two individuals. It is a very high statistic that it's also because man and woman are so different. But I don't want to categorize and say all men don't want to talk about it and all women do, because that's not the case. That's not the case with us.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
the case with you. So it just needs to be understood that I don't want my husband to be the female in the relationship. Like, that's my role. That's what God has called me to do. And so I want to do the best that I can do. Again, going back to that individuality, but then also like turn it so it's not that selfish inclination, but it's a selfless inclination of, if I can know who I am in Christ, I can be sensitive to what his need is
Yeah.
and what he needs from me. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be everything that I can be for him.
Yeah.
Not again putting my identity in him. It's because my identity is in Christ and I understand my role in this relationship with my partner.
Yeah.
So now I can understand, okay, my emotional need, not just as a woman, but as an individual, as who I am, is different
Yeah.
than his. And so when I speak to him, and we have those difficult conversations because we are communicating, even if there is, the friction.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is still true communication where we're saying things delicately so that we don't hurt one another because we're
Yeah.
upset, but this is how I felt when this happened. What did you mean by it? Clarify for me. Help me.
Yeah.
Because my emotional need for him to reach in and say certain words that affirm me and validate me as I go through is different than what he needs.
Yeah.
He needs me to be honest.
Yeah.
And we've, again, been married a long time, and we're still learning.
Oh,
We don't have it all figured out.
I was going to say, like, it's a constant learning curve. It's one of those things that, like, I think you think you know someone before you get married in that dating thing, but you put up a facade in your dating.
Yeah.
You do
part.
sure
You know
try
what
to
I
put
mean?
all your
Like,
good stuff forward, don't you?
Like my wife, she jokes about it all the time. She says that I literally thought you were the most outgoing person when I first met you, because all you
my
did was just
Lord.
welcome people to church. You were shaking everybody's hand every time I saw you in church and everything like that. Well, I don't know if that was just personally me trying to put a facade on, because I wanted to reach out to them and stuff like that.
So
but
for those of you listening in,
Yeah, right.
Justin is
No.
probably the most introverted person
No.
that we
I'm better
we
than I
have
used
met.
to be. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I would say, like, it's a learning curve constant, but, like, I think the first few years, like you said, it's like once you get married and you're living together and you're starting to learn one another, you realize that there's a lot to learn. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you are constantly learning because you're two separate people. And when marriage happens, it unifies you and you become one. And but that doesn't happen overnight. And there is some learning to be done. But I
Growing
think
pains.
one of the most important things that you can do to help that learning happen is be sensitive to the other person, not just be cold or shy away from confrontation, because confrontation, if it's handled rightly and communication is good, it brings growth.
Yes.
And
right.
and I am here to tell you today, after 12 years of marriage, our relationship is stronger than it was when we first got married. 100%. 110%. Like, and there was a lot of journey. Like,
Yeah.
Our house flooded. We went through fostering. We lost some kids. We got them back. Like, Michaela had back surgery, and, the job situation. There's a lot to be had. And I'm sure someone's listening right now who can look back on their marriage and say, man, it's been a journey to get to where we are today. But think about it. Did that make you stronger when you tackled the world with your spouse and you got through it together, because you're getting through it together? I think it's a testament to how a good, godly relationship is strong and can tackle a lot of things that someone that doesn't have a relationship with Christ might not be able to tackle and handle as well as you did. And so I think it all comes down to learning each other and understanding that you're two separate people and you have two separate needs, but learning how to meet those needs is so vital and so important for a healthy relationship. And ultimately, it's how you get through it together, is understanding others' needs and maybe sacrificing a little bit to give that need. You know what I mean? So,
Well, and I hope we're also encouraging maybe someone also listening that
Yeah.
is new in their relationship, newer in their marriage, and maybe it's struggling right now. And maybe they're thinking, well, we only ever fight. Okay, let's see past the emotion of the fight and let's have some conversation, because healthy relationships have healthy conversations. Well, what do healthy conversations look like?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's disagreeable. Sometimes it's opposing views.
Yeah.
And if you do not have those conversations, you are living in a novel.
Yeah.
And it will not last.
Yeah.
You have to have those conversations, and you have to come at them in a matter of, I want to be honest, but I don't have to be cruel.
Yeah.
I want to be real, but I want to think about them first and see if they can meet me in that place
Right.
where
Yeah.
I'm giving just as much as they're giving, and we could have a whole nother conversation on, when he only has 10%, I'm happy to give the 90%. When I only have 10%, he's happy to give the 90%.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking in general, when you have conversations, you have to have that give and take. And here's the big thing. Trust takes time. It just does.
100%.
It does.
Trust takes time. And a healthy relationship is built on trust. So if you're listening and you're a brand new relationship, you just got engaged, you just started dating someone, you feel like they're the one for you, you just got married, know that you are at the beginning of something amazing, and it
100%.
takes time.
Yeah.
So give grace,
Yeah.
give long suffering,
Yeah.
give mercy.
Yeah.
I mean, don't take abuse. I'm
No.
not saying that at all. That's not
Yeah.
what we're talking about. But understand that trust is not built in these grand gestures. That's romanticism, and that's wonderful, and I love it. Trust me, I love flowers. Okay, but trust is built in the small moments.
Right.
And I really feel like the takeaway here is what he said about prepping and talking before the storm. I really
Yeah.
feel like that's going to be the nugget here today, because that is building trust.
Right.
Like I'm not in an emotional environment where I'm mad at someone and he's not mad at me, and we can sit and talk about what he likes.
Yeah.
Like when I come home and I say this and this, he likes it.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it when I just kiss him on the cheek and walk away.
Right.
Right.
What could be classified as the dumb things. It's the small things
Yeah.
where trust is built,
Yeah.
or rebuilt. And then we can't take a whole nother podcast time here, but rebuilding that trust if it's been broken, and you both are in it to rebuild it and to come back to a place of restoration in a relationship.
I think it's important too to be open with your spouse and just be open with your communication, because let's be honest, we're talking about trust, but it's hard to trust a stranger. And they got to know who you are and what you're thinking and how you handle things and how you come about it. And ultimately, a lot of your life is shaped by your past. And if you're not open to your spouse about your past and where you were molded and shaped it and changed to who you are today, it brings a lot of enlightenment when you're open with your communication, when you come to who you are and what you need, and just being open with it. Because let's be honest with you, I can sit here and try to figure out Michaela, but it's so much easier when she's open and she says, hey, this is what I need.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, like, you tell me what you need, it gets done. Like, put it on a list, tell me this is what you need done, it'll be done within a day.
Sometimes we just want you to know.
Yeah. I know. But
You're just supposed
but
to.
it goes
You should
both,
know me
it goes
enough.
both
It
ways.
totally
yeah?
does. I have
Yeah,
to.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, we're talking about communication, then we're also talking about learning to trust. It's hard to trust a stranger. You got to be open with
That's
who
so
you are,
good.
and
Yeah.
you got to be willing to ultimately, marriage, you got to take all the blinders down and be vulnerable at times and say, this is how I'm feeling and this is how I'm seeing things right now.
Yep.
And I think that's why there's so much difference between dating and marriage. Because when you're dating, I feel like you shouldn't, but I feel like instinctively you try to put your best foot forward and you try to shield those things that make you what you think is less attractive.
Absolutely.
And you're
everything
kind of
like that.
blind to, like,
Oh yeah.
you're blinded by love, right? Like
Right, and that too,
infatuation.
yeah.
The infatuation.
There's just
100%.
not
Yeah.
a lot of confrontation that comes
Exactly.
up, but it does when you get into marriage for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I love this. I really do. And I hope it's been helpful
Yeah.
for those listening
Yeah.
in. I mean, we could go off on so many different avenues right
Right.
now, especially with 3 different perspectives and experiences. I will say, coming from a long-standing relationship, it has not been perfect. There's been lots of up and downs. But isn't that the key, though? Knowing that we are imperfect people.
Yeah.
So healthy relationships don't take perfect people.
Yep.
They just take willingness to, hey, I want to be a healthy individual so that I can have a healthy relationship. Because if I'm going back, if I don't know very much about myself or where I stand in my own life and in my own relationship with Christ,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely going to live a facade and try to keep myself as protected as possible, which
Yeah.
in definition is you being a stranger.
Right.
Yeah. Can I just
So-
share like 2 quick
Yes.
things that
Oh, please.
helped me a ton in my marriage, and would with any relationship, right? So, don't make you statements when you're having a discussion. So
Okay.
like you know, I don't like you did this, you did that. You know, instead say, hey, like, I don't like the way this played out, you know, and instead of just like pointing the finger,
I
so
love
making
that.
a you statement. I think that's been huge for me. And then also, when you like, Justin was kind of saying from your past, right? So like when you learn more about your, you know, partner's childhood, then you kind of see, oh, this is why they're reacting that way. And you don't have to point it out. You're reacting this way because this happened, you know, like that
Right.
doesn't matter that you know why. It's just like a thing of, you know, what do they need from me right now?
Yeah, validating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I be that reassurance or that validation for them? Because that's what they need, you know, because this is why they're reacting, because this happened in the past. I think
Yeah.
that's huge. And, yeah, just setting clear expectations of like, you know, you mentioned it earlier, like this made me feel this way. I think that's huge. Just talking about those things and just, you know, that's kind of getting into the nitty gritty and practical, you know,
Yeah.
really practical, but like not making you statements and pointing out flaws, but just saying like this happened. I didn't
Yeah.
like the way it made me feel this way. I just think, oh, that's huge. And then seeing their childhood too.
Oh yeah. No, I love
Helps
that.
you understand them better, because it's not just, you know them from the time that you've known them, but there's so much that happened before that,
Right.
that, like Justin said, shaped and molded them, that I think is like important to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take the time.
Yeah.
And the whole validating thing, no matter how solid you are in your faith with Christ, you're still human.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
And so when I have an emotion that rises up in me and my husband doesn't understand it, but he, in his own way, he validates it. And he's like, I know you're feeling really overwhelmed right now. Do you want me to leave you alone, or do you need me to hug you?
Yeah.
That
that's
is huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's taken a long time for us to learn all of that. But
Yeah.
you know, being able to tell people, hey, this works for us, like you just did. I know that's going to be a blessing.
And instead of like your husband could be like, well, why are you feeling overwhelmed by that? You know, like you don't have to understand why.
Yeah,
you
stop
know?
questioning
They
my
just
feelings.
do.
Right.
Right. They just, that's just the way that they are. And like,
Yeah.
be validating. And
Yeah.
I think that's big.
That's good. Woo.
Yeah. I think we could also highlight the fact that marriage is beautiful, and marriage is designed by God, and we are here, and God has prepared someone for you. And when that happens, cherish it, because marriage is a beautiful bond, and marriage
is.
is strong, and marriage can be something that pulls you from some very dark places in your life.
Oh, yeah.
It's a strong opportunity to have a strong bond with someone in this journey of life. And if it's God-centered and you work on it and you put effort towards it and they put effort towards it, it's a beautiful thing. And it's something
Absolutely.
I know some people, and I'm sure all of us know some people who have been married so many years. And you think of marriage and you think, man, the numbers are staggering of how many don't work out and all this jazz. But then you see these people who have been married from how many years, and you see them, and you know they only have a few more years to live, and all they can do is cling on each other. And it's such a beautiful testament. And you look at those person and you say, man, they are the perfect couple. I guarantee you they would say it took a long journey to get to where they are today.
Yeah.
And
That's so true.
But what speaks volume is the fact that they had compassion for one another, they cared for one another, and ultimately they made it work. And they got to a point to where, you know, this life was together and it was unified, and it's a beautiful sight to see. And I think just be encouraged. Maybe you're young and you just got married for the first time. You first got married, and ultimately, you know, you see the challenges of learning one another, and that, let me just say, like, it never gets perfect and it's never easy. There's times where this journey, but I look back and I would never want my life without Michaela. You know, it's just a beautiful thing to see, and just take the wins, take them and rejoice in them, and celebrate with one another in the wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
And understand that you're there together, and ultimately it's a life to live. And so I would just encourage you, it gets better if you work together. You can get through anything, and God, if God's in your life and the head of your marriage, and you follow his path for you, it's the best life you can live. So
Absolutely the best.
yep.
Great way to end it. I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us on the LCI podcast.
If you liked what you heard here today, please follow us. YouTube is LifeChurch Presents. You can also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Thank you, and God bless.